In this video, we will show you how to use the Pear Deck LTI app within Schoology. The Pear Deck LTI tool can be used to assign a Pear Deck lesson from within Schoology. Either a student-paced or a teacher-paced Pear Deck lesson can be used. Students can join and complete Pear Deck lessons all within Schoology. There is no need for the joinpd.com code typically used with Pear Deck lessons. Additionally, there is auto-grade passback to Schoology for completion of assigned Pear Deck lessons within Schoology. Teachers can also manually adjust grades after the fact. Lastly, an important thing to know about the Pear Deck LTI app is that the Show Responses option within Pear Deck is not yet available with the Schoology integration. If you first need to learn about Pear Deck before learning how to integrate it into Schoology, go ahead and take a test run. Access this link here to participate in a live Pear Deck session to see what it's all about. You can also access the Pear Deck GUHST Tech page that has lots of resources both built by GUHST Tech and Pear Deck. If you would like to request support from a digital learning coach or a DLC, please follow this link here. And lastly, if you want to view Pear Deck how-to videos, go ahead and click this link and access the YouTube playlist here. To create your Pear Deck assignment in Schoology, we'll follow these steps. By clicking Add Materials, we're going to access Add File, Link, External Tool. We're going to select External Tool. In the drop-down menu under Tool Provider, we're going to select Pear Deck. We notice that these fields here are automatically populated from the Pear Deck LTI. If you want to enable grading, what this will do is it will allow you to create a grade column in your gradebook for this Pear Deck assignment. You can assign point totals here if you want to. If you don't want this to be graded and don't want this to show up in the Schoology gradebook, simply uncheck this. If you do want to enable grading, we'll go ahead and give it a due date, categorize, select all the other information you'd like, and go ahead and click Submit. Don't forget your title. Our next step is to click the assignment we've created in Schoology. It's going to connect with Pear Deck. It may ask you to log in with your GUHST credentials, so if it does, please do so. At this point, we are now going to search our Google Drive for the slides presentation, which has all of the interactive Pear Deck questions on it. So Schoology is connecting to your Google Drive at this point. At this point, you're going to search for the name of the Google Slides presentation that has the interactive Pear Deck questions. Let's say that this is the Pear Deck lesson. Go ahead and click Select. Pear Deck will load. At this point, it will ask you if you'd like a student-paced activity or an instructor-paced activity. Please note that at the bottom that you can always change this later. For now, we're going to select student-paced activity. So this is a student-paced activity, and we will see now that it is embedded inside of Schoology itself here. Once your students start coming in, we'll notice next that we can see the list of students here once students populate and once they start joining. And this is a self-paced, so students will go through this on their own. If you want to stop student-paced at any time, you can do that, and it will turn it into teacher-paced. And then now you control the pace at which the students are progressing. Now that the assignment is ready for students to complete, we're going to take a look at the student perspective. I'm a sample student, Eric Brown, and I'm coming into my Schoology course. The way that I access my lesson is by clicking the lesson itself in Schoology. The Pear Deck lesson will load, and a lot of the same features that you're familiar with Pear Deck itself are going to be present inside of the Schoology lesson. So the student experience is virtually identical to that as if they were doing it outside of Schoology itself. So we're in a student-paced lesson here. Students can expand if they want to by clicking this. They can also expand by clicking the arrow inside of here, and they would simply click to revert back. To progress through the slideshow, students will, like they would normally outside of Schoology, progress themselves. Go ahead and type their answers. Add another responses. So we see that the Pear Deck system that exists outside of Schoology is very similar to the system that exists inside of Schoology. Once the students reach the end of the Pear Deck lesson within Schoology, we see that we have slide 22 of 23. The last slide, in this case, is going to be students have an option to submit their work. Students will see this submit their work option because we enabled grading in the initial creation of this assignment. So just to repeat that, students will signify that they have completed by clicking submit work if the enable grading feature is checkmarked when you originally create the assignment. I'm a student, I'm going to go ahead and submit my work now that I'm done, and I get a notification. Once I submit my work in Pear Deck lesson, as a student, I can still go back and make changes and add answers, even after I have submitted my work in here. These changes will be reflected in what the teacher sees. The only way that you can completely shut down this Pear Deck access is by, from the teacher perspective, ending a session like you normally would do in class. That will completely lock students out from completing this. To monitor student performance, provide feedback, and eventually assign a grade to a student who's completed a Pear Deck lesson, here's how it would look from the teacher perspective. So I go back into my lesson as a teacher. I see that I have one student logged in. I can open up the roster and see who has joined. I can tell their mood. And if I need to, I can block them from the session I have here. So this lesson was created in the vein of a student-paced lesson. So students are working through this at their own pace. If at any time I want to go and monitor and see responses from students, I can. I can go ahead and click here. This flow mimics our teacher dashboard that we would be using if we were in a new tab at peardeck.com. So I can see Eric Brown's responses. We see that all of these features are similar. You can leave individual feedback to students on individual responses by clicking here. You can star them just like you can outside of Schoology. And then of course we can change the way that things look, sorting by time, response, or student, and then also either in grid layout or list layout. I can expand this by clicking this option here if I want to have a bigger screen. And then I can hide responses as well when I display them. We see that the options on the bottom toolbar are identical to the ones that are listed in the Pear Deck website. So if I click these three vertical dots, I can make full screen here. I can open the projector in a new tab, and that's what would be displaying in class if we were in class with students. I can toggle on and off student pace mode. So if I want to turn this back into teacher mode and I want to move all my students to a particular slide of my choosing, I can do that by going back to teacher mode. And then also I can end the session clearly here, or I can leave the session and then leave it open for students to complete later. Now we're going to switch to teacher mode. So if you want to turn on teacher paced mode, there are some things we need to talk about with regard to showing responses. So one of the limitations of this Pear Deck LTI tool that when teachers are in the classroom with students using Pear Deck, the show responses feature is not available with the Pear Deck LTI. And I want to show you what I mean by that. So typically if we're using this in classroom with students, once we do go back to the classroom, teachers would typically show all student responses as anonymized and project them to the class. And they would show up on each individual student's Chromebook machine. And they would get to see the results of all the students in the class for that particular Pear Deck question. So I'm going to show you what happens when we're using the Schoology LTI tool. So if I'm doing a teacher Pear Deck teacher paced lesson here and I click show responses, I notice that I get this red box around here that says, okay, you're showing these responses. I'm now going to switch to the student perspective. And I'm going to reload. And on the student screen here, what typically shows if we were using the Pear Deck tool outside of Schoology is that all the responses would be listed here. So the student screen would look just like the teacher screen. We can see here that from a student perspective, in this case, Eric Brown, the responses are not being displayed to me. So that is a limitation of using the Pear Deck LTI tool if you are doing the Pear Deck teacher paced option. I'm going to go ahead and hide responses from now from here. Again, all the other same toolbar tools are available for you as a teacher doing the teacher paced. If you do want to open up your teacher dashboard into a new window, so let's say that you want to move this outside of Schoology, even though you created it within Schoology, we can do that by opening up the projector into a new tab. So this is what would be projected theoretically in the class for students to see at the board up top. And now at this point, I can open the dashboard in a new window. It will pop up, and I can still control things from within this area here. We see that it's just opened up and snapped out into a new window. and you can go ahead and close that at any time if you want to return back to working within Schoology itself. If you have enabled grading for a Pear Deck Schoology lesson, then grades will be passed back to the Schoology gradebook. There is a small caveat to this, however. If the teacher has enabled grading, once students submit their Pear Deck lesson to the Schoology assignment itself here, and after they've gotten this confirmation page, students will receive a grade in the gradebook. The way that Schoology interprets this submission is it assumes that the student answered all the questions and gives 100% of the point total to the students once they submit the Pear Deck lesson. So if I go to my gradebook now, I'm in my teacher mode, and I scroll over to my gradebook and I see the Pear Deck title assignment, I see that Eric Brown has automatically been given a 25. Eric Brown was the student who submitted their work. Schoology did not grade this. Pear Deck did not grade this. The teacher has not even verified that these points, that the students have earned these points. What Schoology does upon that submission is it automatically gives the student a 100% on that Schoology LTI Pear Deck assignment. If you want this to be different, you can go in and you can manually change these scores. So if you go into the assignment, the Pear Deck assignment, and you see Eric Brown's responses and notice that he didn't even attempt all of them, then you can grade them accordingly. We know that Pear Deck is used best in a formative way to provide feedback and boost engagement for students. If we're going to be creating Schoology assignments in here in a self-paced way, this is something to be considered if you want to actually grade this assignment and include a grade in here for your students or not, or use it purely as a way to engage with your students, get them thinking about the curriculum. Just to reiterate, once a student, let's go back to the student, once a student submits the Pear Deck assignment, they will be automatically given a 100% by Schoology on that grade. And this will happen automatically. Again, the teacher can go back and change that whenever they want.